tonight's a me night and I cannot cancel that. I have to be there for me. And I'm so excited for that. And so,
but what if I was a partner that was like, no, like let's you and me hang out. Yeah. If I didn't encourage you to put the me date first, you would eventually be an emptier and emptier and emptier and emptier cup.
Conscious couples, business partners, and singles committed to attracting their dream partner. Welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast, where we share our life, love story, and combined relationship expertise to help you create and consistently cultivate the most magnificent, intimate relationship possible.
Never again will you feel hopeless and alone in your intimate relationship challenges.
Having accumulated thousands of hours coaching conscious couples and individuals all over the world, as well as starting and growing a global business together, Alan and I are here to guide you in all things relationships.
Thank you again for tuning into the one place where it's not about you or me, it's about the we. Conscious couples and individuals, welcome back to the one and only Conscious Couples podcast. Hello, hello, hello. What's happening? This is episode number 78. Is your partner being too selfish? That is possible. It's not definite, but it is possible. I'm in a giggly mood today, so this is going to be a fun one, I think. Before we jump into this episode, thank you again to Next Level Podcast Solutions for producing this show and 43 others. We appreciate you so much. Seriously, keep up the good work. Thank you for making us look better than we really are. Just kidding. Sweetheart, as always, what is your intention for today's episode?
My intention is to help our listeners determine what their relationship actually needs more of. Is it selfishness or is it selflessness?
So, origin story time. Okay. Emilia and I, 3.5 years ago, coming up on 4 years now, did not know each other. We knew of each other. Mm-hmm. She was friends with her now business partner, Bianca. And their podcast is called Evolve Ventures Technologies. Evolve Ventures. Mm-hmm. Yeah, is that? I know you guys have rebranded a few times. Evolve Ventures. Mm-hmm. And essentially, Emilia had seen my Instagram. And back in those days, I was a fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach. My whole world was fitness. And I had several shirtless photos. And the last thing that she wanted in her life was another attractive meathead. And Bianca, thank you so much if you're listening, and she does listen to this show, so seriously, thank you. She said, you don't understand his mind, though. I'm telling you, I know he looks like a meathead, but he has a powerful mind. So listen to this episode. So Emilia listens to the podcast a little bit, and she starts getting intrigued. Oh, interesting, Interesting. And at that point, I had been secretly watching all of her videos and kind of following her, and not in like a creepy stalker sense, but in like I'm very curious about this woman. And Kevin actually mentioned a couple times, you should really reach out to her. Mm-hmm. At some point, I was in San Diego. I was at an event. You ended up messaging me. This is before we were dating at all. Mm-hmm. Eventually, Emilia had suggested a podcast episode. Back then, our podcast, which is now Next Level University, it used to be the Hyper Conscious podcast. And hyper conscious means acutely aware. So it's all about change the way you think, change the way you act, change the way you live. So it's definitely right up Emilia's alley, which was the whole point of the podcast. I'm kidding. But anyways, so she reaches out for an episode suggestion. She says, can you two please talk about selfish versus selflessness?
I'm actually pretty sure that I reached out to Kev, not you.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Kev was the one that messaged me and said, hey, if you ever have any suggestions, let me know. And I was like, actually. And I remember you guys were both in San Diego together.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, when he opened up the video.
Was it your birthday when I was in San Diego? Or was it my birthday or something?
I don't know.
When we were in San Diego, we talked for some reason. I remember seeing the DMs.
Yeah, because it was like I had sent him a video or something. Okay. This is the suggestion, because like that was what I did. Like I did video DMs. And that was weird for other people. Apparently.
Yeah, back then. Although now that's the norm. Although I still think maybe it's not. But anyway, so you suggested selfish versus selfless. Kevin and I remember it. Our studio back then was actually in my mother's basement. So big things start small. Things have changed a lot since then, thank goodness. But anyways, we ended up recording an episode about selfish versus selfless. And this was the only time. And at that point, I think we were on episode like 400 something. The 300 something at least. We're in the 300s, which in hindsight is not that far along because we're at 1400 now. But back then, 300 episodes is actually quite far along. It's all relative. So we had done 300 plus episodes together before, and we had never had this issue. And the issue that Kevin and I had was we disagree. So on our podcast, we encourage healthy debates. We do. We do it all the time. We just did one about empathy and personal development, and I disagreed with him on the podcast respectfully, and we had this nice, what we call drive to 5, the consensus. Let's agree to disagree, but also kind of agree, and let's figure out what this means to each of us. And so in this episode that Emilia had suggested, this was the one time where I feel like I understood the listener way better than him. And I was like, you do not get her. After we finished the episode, I was like, Kev, we cannot air that. That's not what she wants. That's not what she's talking about. And I could tell that Kevin had never really struggled with this as much as you had. Hindsight's 2020. Looking back, Kevin has a different side of this coin than Emilia does. And I have the side of the coin that Emilia does. And that's the premise, the origin story of this episode. Then fast forward, we recorded a new episode. We ended up launching it. I eventually messaged you, and then the very first episode of the Conscious Couples podcast is our love story. So if you want to pick back up and see where we started, be kind, because that first episode we weren't probably very strong as podcasters at the time, but we've gotten better since then. That is our love story. That is the origin story of this episode. So what does this have to do with our listeners? Our listeners, is your partner being too selfish? It's that same concept of selfish versus selfless. Emilia had reached out back then and asked, even prior to us meeting, how do you know when you're being too selfish versus being too selfless? And Emilia and I talked before recording this today, and I said the me versus the we. And the harmonization of those two things. I've seen so many couples, and there's usually one partner who is very focused on the we. They're putting the relationship first, the family first, the collective first, the we first. And usually, not always, but usually, they have a partner who is putting the me first. What I found fascinating is that can be done very well, or that can be done very, very poorly. Usually it's yin and yang. Usually it's one partner is putting the me more first and one person is putting the we more first. And then that flip-flops occasionally. But we all have a tendency. We all have a home. So do you tend to be more selfless, or do you tend to be more selfish? Does your partner tend to be more selfless, or does your partner tend to be more selfish?
A great indicator of this in your relationship is how are you spending your time? Are you constantly worried about what the family's going to do for dinner, or the next time that you're going to be able to talk to your partner? And if your worries, if your anxieties, if your thoughts tend to kind of swim in the lane of what's best for the we, or what's best for your partner, or what's best for your relationship, you're likely leaning on the side of selflessness. And as a result, your relationship is going to, over the long term, suffer because you're not really taking time to fill your own cup. You're so worried about filling everyone else's cup. And that's where you and I have landed. We care so deeply about helping other people to a detriment when it comes to the we. So you and I actually have to create me dates. Whereas a lot of people who are on the more selfish end of things
have to create date nights.
They spend so much time focusing on the me that the we kind of gets neglected. So figuring out which one you are you a very selfish person by default? And that's not a bad thing. Obviously, everything to extremes can become a bad thing.
This is a spectrum. Yes. So on the far left, you've got 0. On the far right, you've got 10. 0 in this case is selfish, fully focused on the me. On the far right, you have 10, which is fully selfless. Okay? Fully selfish is complete narcissism, 0 regard for others. 10 is martyrdom. And a martyr is someone who goes down fighting, but dies. 5 is what we're talking about. We're talking about drive to 5. We're talking about getting harmonized in the center. Everyone has a home. Do you tend to be overly selfish or tend to be overly selfless? If you're overly selfish, you will be a full cup in yourself, but we will slowly decay because you're not prioritizing your partner.
Mm-hmm.
You're not prioritizing the relationship. You're not prioritizing the family. You're not being proactive enough at making sure you're fulfilling their needs, their love languages, right?
Mm.
And the opposite is also the case and both sides have pros and cons. If you're fully selfless, and I know a lot of you and I, for example, I'll talk about you because you definitely are. And thank goodness, because I used to be the one who was the selfless one in the relationship always.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's nuances of like how much each person has to actually give, who's more capable, who's more aware, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But for Emilia, I have to proactively encourage her to take time for herself because she's always focused on taking care of our babies, fur babies. Got to specify that. We don't have babies yet. But we have Tucker, Tariel, and now our new Tiger Lily, Tilly for short. So it's Tucker, Tariel, and Tiger Lily, which is a new kitten that we have.
Tiger, Nala, Lily.
Yeah, exactly. So Tilly for short. Tucker, Tariel, and Tilly.
Hi, Amy and Chris Lennius here to give a quick moment of appreciation for Alan and Emilia. We have been working with them for a few months now, maybe 6, maybe going on 6 months now, and we appreciate you guys so much. To see you guys work as a team, to help couples work as a team is one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen. Not only have you helped us reconnect and helped us with our marriage, you've also helped us through big life moments, with boundaries, with creating our own stable unit at home. We appreciate you guys so, so much.
Yes, truly heartfelt appreciate you guys and everything you've done for us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
We love you.
And Emilia, the first thing she does when she wakes up is go take care of Tilly.
Mm-hmm.
She's like a little 5-week-old, adorable kitten. But if you're not careful, you're going to take care of me, you're going to take care of Tucker, you're going to take care of Tariel, you're going to take care of Tilly, you're going to take care of the home, you're going to take care of your clients, you're going to take care of the listeners, you're going to try to save the world at the expense of yourself, and then you're going to be an empty cup and you're not going to be able to continue to pour. So
Exactly.
if you are on the selfless end, I'm going to say a quote that is very important for you. Putting yourself first is not selfish. It's necessary for you to be more selfless. What if what's best for you is what's best for the world? Now, sweetheart, this is the part where I really need to drive home. That quote is dangerous for people who are already selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have an ex-girlfriend who was extremely me-focused. Everything was about me, always, unconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
And that really was not good, genuinely. I'm so grateful. You are the opposite, thank God. But anyways, some people are really, really good at taking care of the me. And the last thing I want them to say is, oh, what if taking care of me is what's best for the world? It's not. Not for you. You already take care of only you. That's not what's best for the world, right? So again, this is find out what side of the spectrum you're on, 0 to 10. And if you're too far on either extreme, it's going to be very dangerous for your intimate relationship.
1,000%. And that's where I think a healthy reflection is really important. Like, for example, this morning, I had to make sure that the me was taken care of before I even went to go see the babies. I even went to go see you because I knew and had reflected that I have been pouring into everyone else. I don't want to say except for me, but at the expense of the me. And that intentional focus for me was really, really important and brought the focal point. I think of like a flashlight analogy, like wherever you're shining the flashlight, you're going to see more of. And the flashlight in this analogy is you focusing in your attention on what are you doing? Where are your thoughts going? What are you doing? What's your behaviors guiding you into? And so for me, the flashlight has really been on you. Are you good? Is Tilly okay? Is Tucker okay? Is Tariel okay? Because introducing a new family member, there's a lot that's involved and that has so much impact. And knowing that I've been doing that since like literally last Sunday, it's like I need to kind of refocus this flashlight back on me before anyone else, because I will be an empty cup by the end of the day. And tonight's a me night and I cannot cancel that. I have to be there for me. And I'm so excited for that. And so,
but what if I was a partner that was like, no, like let's you and me hang out.
Yeah.
If I didn't encourage you to put the me date first, you would eventually be an emptier and emptier and emptier and emptier cup.
Definitely.
And I do know that some of our listeners feel that way.
Definitely.
If you have a partner who is a little bit more on the selfish side, you need to become aware of it and you need to call it out. Yeah. And you need to also understand that you are making up for their selfishness with selflessness.
Yes.
And so, sweetheart, for another example, Tilly is only 4 weeks old. We've seen, even in the last week with your efforts, she has blossomed into this adventurous, amazing. We found her literally on the streets, saddest story, and she was like scared and hissing and not in a good place. And now she's like this flourishing, I'm gonna jump off the bed and freak dad out thing. And it's amazing, but I know that that's your work. And so you have a partner who sees not everything and knows he doesn't see everything, but can give you that. I know that that's more than you than me. You've had cats your whole life. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm learning and I'm helping as much as I can. But at the end of the day, I know a lot of our listeners, I'm just going to speak very frankly because I'm done avoiding any uncomfortable truths. A lot of our listeners have selfish partners who are not acknowledging the amount of effort that is being put in behind the scenes. I don't want it to be, we watched a movie one time called Hidden Figures. And it's about these three African-American women who were in NASA, who were the real reason why we were able to go to the moon. Such a magnificent film.
Let me reemphasize the real reason why we were able to get there, because I think that like when you say that, babe, it like people don't understand the magnitude to what you're about to say. The only reason that we were able to get there is because of their efforts.
Right.
And like, it's just so easy to walk over that. So keep going. Sorry.
So Hidden Figures, if you've never seen it, it's a very, very powerful film based on a true story. Magnificent. I love the films that show the actual people at the end and the pictures at the end and all that. But at the end of the day, I don't want our listeners to feel like Hidden Figures. I have one person I'm thinking of in particular that listens to our show. And shout out to you. You'll know who I'm talking about. She is a mother of 4. And she is the unsung hero of like everyone's development. I coach her son. He's amazing. And I tell her, I said, she's like, oh my God, we're in Costa Rica and he still jumped on the call. He amazes me. I'm like, listen, a lot of that is you. A lot of that is him modeling you. He's seeing his mother show up. He's seeing his mother's humility. He's seeing his mother's work ethic. A lot of that is you. And I know that. I know because I did not have that growing up and I wish that I had. So I don't want any of our listeners to be unsung heroes. And if you're a listener of the Conscious Couples podcast, you most likely have a similar growth-oriented, selfless paradigm. And you might not be with a partner who also does, and they might need to look in that mirror. And you're going to be maybe the reason they do.
Hey, yeah. And that's where the boundary setting, the assertiveness, the building your own self-confidence comes in, building your own self-worth. And you do that by creating more me dates, by honoring the promises that you make to yourself. And I know that is so hard when you do have a selfless paradigm. So hopefully, if that's something that you are struggling with, you feel comfortable to reach out to us, Alan and I, every single Saturday. We make sure that we create 30 minutes on our calendar. It's a very casual, on the comfortable couch conversation with you so that we can help you work through some of these things. If it's this challenge that you're going through, you and your partner are struggling, maybe you're butting heads around the fact that you believe that your relationship has more focus on the me than the we. Maybe it's vice versa. Either way, we can help you kind of navigate that to be in a better spot. So that will
Babe,
be...
if the focus was on the me, they probably wouldn't be listening. The point of this episode, the point of this podcast is to pour into the we and to have a better we. So most likely if our listeners are listening, they're probably on the side of the...
I meant their partner.
Oh, okay. You meant their partner.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. So either way, that link is in the show notes and feel free to click on that. And we would love to see you on Saturday.
Okay. Thank you. So we also have a Relationship Talks virtual event every single month. It is the third Thursday of every single month. So on the third Thursday of August, which I still do not know the date, love, that's on me, how to work through uncomfortable truths with your partner. If this episode really was like, damn, the way I used to feel, in my intimate relationship, if I heard this episode, I'd be like, oh no,
Mhm.
yeah, no, I definitely have a selfish partner for sure. And I'm going to have to bring that up. If you are scared to bring it up, if you're scared to have uncomfortable conversations and share uncomfortable truths, some of the things that I've said in this episode have been uncomfortable for me, genuinely, because I don't want to presuppose. I don't want people to think, oh, that's so arrogant for him to think that, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, I'm certain that some of you have selfish partners,
Mhm.
and I'm certain that that is going to need to be level set. And I'm certain that this event will help you bring up the uncomfortable truths that will help your partners evolve, and it will help you evolve as well. Because usually what we do is when we do have people that are on the selfish end, usually there is an overcorrection in us to make up for that. And so the more and more, for example, if I were to be more and more selfish in our relationship, sweetheart, you would naturally be more and more selfless to try to keep things going at the same momentum. And I think that that could create some really bad things down the line. And so these uncomfortable conversations and uncomfortable truths need to be had. And I want to encourage our listeners to come to this event so that we can teach you how to do this. Because it's real easy to say, just go have this uncomfortable conversation with your partner. And we got asked at our last event, well, how do you do that when your partner is like closed off to this stuff?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, so let's do an event on that. So, okay, the link to register will be in the show notes, 3rd Thursday of August. We hope to see you there. And those are private. Those are not recorded. Those are a safe space to just be and talk about the uncomfortable truths.
Heck yeah.
As always, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you. That was episode number 78. Is your partner being too selfish? And as always, it's not about you or me. It's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. We love connecting with the Conscious Couples community, so please make sure you follow us on Instagram. I am at Evolve with Emilia, and Alan is a Lazaros 88.
Also, if you or your partner resonated with this episode, leave us a review at the link in the show notes, and please share this with someone you love and care about.
Until next time, remember, it's not about you or me. It's about
the we.